Barclay has had far fewer episodes compared to other characters that we've covered in these specific character videos, but he is still an interesting character nevertheless. I think it's illustrated in the fact that we've actually had these things to talk about, that the character kept coming back, which is more than what could be said for so many others that appeared over the years, showed up for one episode never to be seen again. Or take Sonia Gomez, who was meant to be a recurring character and still had only 2 appearances. Or Commander Shelby, who appeared full of fire and yet was never seen again after their 2-parter ended. He was brought into First Contact, brought back for Voyager, even considered for Insurrection, even though he started out no different than any of those other characters. Of course, no small part of that is due to the skills of Dwight Schultz, but still, what kept him coming back was because the writers could use him, felt that he fit in, first into his own episode, and then the Nth Degree, and then finally in a role of extended cast member. Maybe the focus of attention, maybe not, but either way, he was treated as if he was a regular presence aboard the ship, that he was a familiar sight and a developing person that the others were aware of. The aforementioned Shelby even referred to his work in The Best of Both Worlds, despite his not even being seen that episode. What was it about him that made them want to keep bringing him back, and for the viewers to be happy to see him again, even if he was just doing stuff that could normally be done by Geordi or O'Brien most of the time? Now, because he didn't have a whole lot of episodes in TNG, there's going to seem like some repetition here. I'm just kind of tying all of the points from that together into this one video and then kind of expanding upon them. For instance, and I think it's probably one of the roots of how you define Barclay's character, his imagination. As for many people, it is both a strength and a weakness when it is to the degree that he has it. His creative problem-solving approaches show his ability to think beyond the obvious and consider other possibilities, ones that might elude others. The connection that he made in Hollow Pursuit showed this, where he was the one that noticed that the systems weren't directly connected, but that the people who tended them were. Or in Ship in a Bottle, where he devised the possible solution to the holodeck issue by taking the transporter-holodeck connection that people sometimes mentioned to its logical conclusion. The fact that he's an engineer whose focus is specifically on problem-solving shows that Reg is uniquely suited to these tasks because of it. His improvised solution to the damaged coil in First Contact may have helped save the Federation. And of course, with imagination is the ability to climb inside of it, as realized in both the holodeck and in his acting. He's comfortable with the unreal, even more so than the real world in the beginning. In fact, while he's often shy around others, he seems fine with holograms. In Ship in a Bottle, he was completely comfortable with Moriarty, and later the Countess, because they were just holograms, and once he found out that they were more than that, he never lost his ease with them. Nothing about it made him uncomfortable. Even the Countess going on over him just made him look a little sheepish, but in a happy sort of way. But as we get into Realm of Fear, there's a drawback to having a very vivid imagination, because when you can keep in mind so many possibilities, you can get caught up in the bad ones. You can imagine scenarios where horrible things happen with nothing that you could do to stop them, and so there's anxiety and fear over things. Often things that shouldn't bother people, but bother you because you think about what might go wrong. With Reg, it's transporters, and to a greater extent his being a hypochondriac, believing something dire is wrong with him. For instance, drinking constantly because of fear that he's got transporter psychosis, or thinking that he's got a necrotic disease when he just has a touch of the flu. He believes that it might be dire because dire things happen to people, and I happen to be a people, so it could happen to me. Reg's fears are of real things, which can happen. But the transporters and the diseases that he worries about are so remote that it illustrates why you can't go through your life worrying about everything which could possibly kill you. Because just about everything can kill you under the right circumstances. You do need to discern between likely immediate danger and more realistic threats. And of course, this can tie into the shyness too, worrying about saying the wrong things, doing the wrong things, and wondering afterwards if they're all talking about how you screwed up. But perhaps the most amusing demonstration of Barclay's imagination in action is the follow-up to Picard's in-joke in Ship in a Bottle. Picard jokes that perhaps their existence exists solely inside of a box, and while everyone else laughs it off, Reg is the one who, when they're all gone, says, "Computer end program," just to be sure. Because only Barclay among them is the kind of person who would wonder about that possibility and give it serious enough consideration to just give it a quick little test. This quality, this sense of imagination, is probably part of his appeal. It's been asserted that Reg was created back in Hollow Pursuits as a representation of Trekkies, or science fiction fans in general, to show the need to not become immersed in the fantasy world to the detriment of reality. And while that is denied, whether it's true or not is a valid point. In fact, it's so valid that it's a point most of us don't actually need to be told, and it would be rather condescending to assume that we do. But most of us can probably understand why it's nice to have something to escape into once in a while, a little break from reality, whether it's reading a book, playing a game, or even just soaking quietly in the bathtub, to push away the world for a little while. Barclay may get carried away with the holodeck, but it is refreshingly human to see someone who, after a long day, wants nothing more than to find a break from the reality that they're stuck with. One need only consider Reg's opposite. If he is the nerd, then 7 of 9 on Voyager would be the prom queen. And yet the episode of Voyager Human Error shows that this is not unique to Barclay, to want to explore other possibilities, even if you would never actually act upon them. Many of us want to imagine how things could be different, whether being an interstellar explorer or just having a different yet ordinary life. It's actually kind of funny, with all the Chakotay romance stuff for that episode, to think about who might be the more compatible partner for 7. And in all honesty, I think it's Reg Barclay. Both are creative, intelligent problem solvers, take pleasure in solitude, are interested in self-aware holograms, and by alien influence had experiences, though different, of a larger kind of consciousness integrated with technology that they eventually had to give up. Now, I think they gel quite well, much better than her and Mr. Dreamcatcher, certainly. Get to work on those fanfics! An aspect which probably appeals to many is the fact that he's so relatably human. I'm not saying that you or I are like him, but that it's easier to relate to someone like Reg than, say, Riker. Reg seems to be doing the best that he can with the hand that he was dealt, while it can feel like Riker had a stacked deck. Now, I'm not putting Riker down or anything. If I start making fun of Riker, believe me, you'll know it. But Reg is much more of an ordinary person. Not that he doesn't seem like he should be in Starfleet, just that he doesn't have all the characteristics that you might take for granted in a Starfleet officer. His lack of confidence, for instance. Just about the only time he ever had to demonstrate leadership in the episodes that we've covered was in Realm of Fear, ordering Chief O'Brien to beam him over despite his reservations, and then to assemble the senior staff. What compelled him in the end was his desperation to do the former and his recognition of the threat to the ship in the latter. So we see that while he is an ordinary man, he can rise to the occasion when it's required, which of course is a great thing to see, that in such a situation any of us might be able to do what's needed. You don't have to be some Starfleet hero to make a difference. Reg doesn't really have an arc in his TNG years, although he does develop somewhat in opening up and the crew becoming more accepting of him as time passes. I know in Hollow Pursuits I felt sorry for him several times, the way the others were looking at him. I mean, he would be doing something as simple as stuttering, and they looked at him like he had just picked his nose and wiped it on his shirt, like he had done something wrong by failing to be the perfect model of an officer. And sure, he's not the guy you'd put on the recruitment posters, but I think it's fair to say that any negative qualities in his character are more than balanced out by his positives, both in his abilities and his personality. He's dedicated, clever, can keep his head in a crisis. He's a definite asset to the team and to the show.